On today's Switch to Linux, we're going to talk about what is going on between OnlyOffice and Nextcloud. This is kind of interesting. I don't know. I have some thoughts, but we'll see. Thanks for checking out this video by Switch to Linux. If you like this type of content, subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more. Leave us a like and a comment down below. Well, controversy has been struck as Nextcloud and OnlyOffice have attempted to collaborate over the years, but in the words of LibreOffice, OnlyOffice wants to act like a proprietary company while masquerading as an open source company. And Nextcloud has confirmed that OnlyOffice makes it very hard for external people outside their company to actually submit any forms of code or help or collaborate in any way. And OnlyOffice in and of itself wants to see only positive publicity about them on the internet. I know this because when I did a video simply highlighting the fact that OnlyOffice makes constant connections to an AWS server, at least it did a few years ago, they actually emailed me with a threatening letter. Good luck with that. And I promptly told them, I am reporting on somebody else's research. Go talk to them. Kind of funny, really. But let's have a look at what is going on here. So effectively what happened here is after a long time of trying to work with OnlyOffice on getting a lot of network connections for Nextcloud going, they eventually just decided to fork it for a number of different reasons. And we'll cover what those happen to be. Now, Nextcloud, of course, I use Nextcloud extensively. I love Nextcloud. It gives me the ability to sync my contacts and calendars, files, Office document suites, just everything that you might use a Google Docs for or a, Dropbox for, any of those types of things, Nextcloud can replace. I mean, it is an incredible application. Now, what my current build of Nextcloud uses is Calibora Online, but for a long time they offered a LibreOffice Online and they offered an OnlyOffice Online for document collaboration. The LibreOffice was effectively replaced with Calibora, which has focused specifically on an online basis system, and the system works really well for a Google Docs type replacement. And they are, of course, right now working towards a desktop client, and I believe they're trying to work on getting networking featuring into that desktop client as well. So we'll see what happens. Of course, down the road, I do like, if we're talking about just doing stuff right on the computer on the desktop, I still prefer LibreOffice. It has a lot more features, it has a lot more functionality, and it prioritizes the ODT, the open source document types, rather than the docx. And that's one of the criticisms people have had of OnlyOffice from the FOSS world, is they are perpetuating the use and requirement of Microsoft's proprietary docx type format and related XML type format documents. And so, yes, while the whole world might be using docx, that's just because Microsoft created a monopoly. You do realize that. And I have not had any major compatibility issues between LibreOffice and sending documents out. And I write I am not just, occasionally open up something. I write books. I format them entirely in LibreOffice, and then I send them out to the same professional printers that every other book in the world is printed with, all done 100% LibreOffice. And I did test that functionality with OnlyOffice and Calibora Online. Can't do it with those two application suites. They just don't have the styling features that LibreOffice has. I also tested LibreOffice in this, I don't think I did this on Switch to Linux. I think this video is on my Writing Done Right channel. But on that, we actually looked at how LibreOffice versus OnlyOffice does things like track changes and things like that. They both worked fairly competently well. I can't remember if one of them outshined. The really only place that I found functionality on the ODT type documents that LibreOffice outshined is that OnlyOffice does not have a means of doing search and replace by regular expressions. So you could search for, the or any other basic word, but when it comes to searching for character returns or special characters, you can't search for complex things on OnlyOffice. You can only do that, at least as of 2 years ago when I did those videos a couple years ago. But let's see what's going on here. So effectively, as Europe moves towards this digital sovereignty and they want software that is open source, available, and as much as possible created in Europe, there was a question about which systems could be used. Well, OnlyOffice had some of the better compatibility with the docx type formats. And so Nextcloud and things were trying to work with this, but there is a Russian connection with OnlyOffice. I personally don't care, okay? I didn't focus on that in the video. I think at one point in time, one of their annoyingly threatening letters like, "You're propagating this." It's like, you're making irrational arguments. I didn't even look into that. I didn't even care, okay? But apparently it was, OnlyOffice was created by some Russian developers, but because of some of the geopolitical things, they effectively rebranded as a UK-based company with a main developer out of Singapore, but a lot of the people working on the code might still actually be in Russia. And there was a lot of commentary in the source code written in Russian, which causes some people to question. Now, as I said, I don't care about that one way or the other. But what Nextcloud basically said, they came out with a couple reasons. Actually, I think that was on their post. So we'll go ahead and have a look at that in a moment. But effectively, they created a fork of OnlyOffice and rebranded it as being a European. And what they're going to do with that is go through line for line through the code. They're going to clean up all the code, hopefully remove those external connections if they are still there, and doing basically auditing and making sure everything is good. In fact, here's what the EuroOffice GitHub page is. And so what they mention here, the key features, it works with a whole variety of different file formats. You can edit documents, spreadsheets, presentation files with others in real time. You can save the document back to the application you use to open or download it. So to the cloud server or to the local server, whatever you want to do. And so what they say down here, it is an open source and developed in public by a community of individuals and organizations. Welcome contributions from everybody, including individuals, companies, public organizations, and nonprofits. Encourage anyone who cares about free and open source, modern technology offices to get involved. So they have a number of different people. Now, I say Nextcloud because Ionis and Nextcloud are the two biggest. This is not an official Nextcloud project that I know of, but it's put together with a number of different people there. So what they say here is it liberates OnlyOffice. So it's based on the OnlyOffice open source and AGPL code base. This code base is being extensively reviewed and cleaned up with the goal of making it easy to build and contribute to. Why did we resort to a fork rather than collaboration? So this is why they get into their reasons. They say the first is contributing is greatly discouraged or impossible. They said they have attempted several times, but OnlyOffice tends to not review or accept pull requests, and effectively they're locked into whatever happens inside of their developers. They said the company regularly makes controversial decisions like closing off features in the mobile app, like mobile editing and the removal of administrator panel. I didn't look into exactly what that was. Lack of transparency. The commit messages, when visible, often refer to an issue number or an internal tracker issue, and there are quite a number of binary blobs, compiled or obfuscated code blobs, which most internal code comments are written in Russian, which makes it hard to work with. And so there is some proprietary elements inside of OnlyOffice. We have to keep that in mind as well. They say lacking transparency. Okay, that's the one we just did. The mobile apps are not really open source, but just wrappers. For example, the apps have extensive proprietary sections which will need to be re-implemented. And then OnlyOffice is a Russian company. Now, OnlyOffice refutes this, but they say despite many attempts to hide it, nearly all developers reside in Russia. Open source is a global effort, but current political situation makes collaboration hard and trust difficult. Again, though, it's not a problem people necessarily have with Russian people. It has to do more with the Russian government. This is not an issue I care about. As long as the code is open, auditable, and programmers who care about these things can alert us to any issues. But it sounds like it may not all be open, and I think that might be part of the problem. So they have a mention on their governance and things like that, and they have, you can get in here and see everything that they have. Now, OnlyOffice they actually are in, no, we're going to deny your cookies. Sorry. OnlyOffice over here is effectively now going to war with Nextcloud. So they have stopped collaboration with them, except they said they are going to keep working on the Nextcloud OnlyOffice portal. So if you are using Nextcloud with OnlyOffice on the back end, that should not be changing. So you should not have any problems, and OnlyOffice continues to support what is going on. But here is where you can see where LibreOffice may have a point, that they're trying to be a proprietary company masquerading as open source. And you can actually kind of see what Nextcloud's point is. And I actually, after looking into this quite a bit, I actually think they are interpreting the license incorrectly. I'm going to point out why. So at OnlyOffice, we've spent years building a fully functional, production-ready online document editor, investing deeply in compatibility, performance, and real-world usability. So that is it. But what they're saying is we're observing this not a matter of technological competition, but of legal compliance. So what they're saying is OnlyOffice added parts to the AGPL that they think Nextcloud or EuroOffice, let's use EuroOffice, is violating. We're going to look at that sort of the code, and we're going to see if they're actually violating it. So based on public information, the EuroOffice project uses technology derived from OnlyOffice editors in violation of our licensing terms and intellectual property law. So that sounds kind of like a proprietary company, not an open source company. They say there are clear rules and they matter. OnlyOffice is distributed under the GNU Alfaro General Public License v3, alongside additional requirements designed to ensure transparency and fair attribution. Now, this is where they have added to that license. They say you cannot fork our code without preserving the OnlyOffice branding. So you can fork it, but you have to keep our branding. They say provide proper attribution to the original technology, and they say fully complying with open source distribution obligations. So those are the three claims that they are making. All right, so they say these conditions are not optional. They are fundamentally a part of using the software legally and ethically. That enters in on the proprietary basis. So here's a lawyer's opinion. We don't know who the lawyer is. We do know, though, that EuroOffice has actually reached out to the creator of the AGPL, and the creator says, yes, what you're doing is in perfect alignment with the license. So the creator of the license agrees with EuroOffice. Keep that in mind. But here is a lawyer's opinion. Since 2016, OnlyOffice has distributed software under the terms of the GNU Alfaro General Public License v3, a widely recognized copyright model designed to ensure balance between openness of the code and protection of rights of the copyright holder. Essentially, the APGL3 requires that the same license be preserved upon distribution, that the source code be disclosed, including where the software is provided as a service, and that the copy notices and licensing attributions are retained. Now, what they're getting to, and I don't actually know where the quote ends, because you'll see here they start their article with a quote, and I think the quote was to end here, but I can't tell. There's no other further end quote here. Oh, unless it's this end quote down here, in which case they're the company writing the software is not following proper roads of grammar, I guess. This should either be very clearly block quoted or some other thing done. I don't know. But let's go ahead and have a look at this. So pursuant to Section 7, the copyright holder is expressly entitled to impose additional conditions. Okay, so the particular conditions are retain the original product logo and denial of any rights to the copyright holder's trademarks. So the additions of the licenses were added in May 2021. So in May of 2021, line 655 of the license adds the requirement to keep that. Here is actually that line in question. So this is the OnlyOffice license to use it, which the whole front up here is verbatim the license. But then when you get down here to the bottom down here at 655, they say, pursuant to Section 7B of the license, you must retain the original product logo when distributing the program. Pursuant to Section 7E, we decline to grant you any right under trademark law for the use of our trademarks. So what they're saying is, hey, you are free to distribute this if you keep our software, but we're declining your use of our trademark. What does the actual 7B say? Here's the actual license from GNU.org. So if you go down to 7B, B says, so let me go ahead and read this preamble here. So this section here is about additional terms. You can add additional permissions. Notwithstanding any other provisions for the material you may add to a covered work, you may, if authorized by the copyright holders of the material, supplement the terms with terms. And they have a list of these. B says requiring preservation of a specified legal notices or author attributions or in the appropriate legal notices displayed by works. Does this mean that you can require them to maintain your branding? No. It requires to say, hey, there is a legal question here, and we have a legal notice in the code. So, for example, you might have forked a code and add to that, hey, you have to require this legal notice for these California age attestation laws that are coming out. We are adding this to comply with California's Assembly Code 1043, and we require you keep this legal notice in here. That would be a proper use of this. But to say, hey, you have to keep all of our branding, that is not something you can demand that the people using it use. Now, they also grant E, declining to grant rights under trademark law for use of some names. Now, what this means is you can force them to not use your name, but you can't force them to use your name. It's open source code. You are free to copy it, distribute it, provided you provide the license and all modifications of the source code. So if we look at the original issues, are they preserving? Those are what they want to be done. Which that is, you cannot say in the code that you have to retain those. Provide proper attribution to the technology. Have they done that? Yes. They say it is based on OnlyOffice. So they have satisfied that portion. And then complying with the open source distribution obligations. So this one, they would be required to make available all of the source code of the application, which is not yet released. So the application is not yet released. So the question is, are we going to get all of the source code? And presumably, yes, it is too early to tell. So is LibreOffice violating OnlyOffice's terms? Well, I think that OnlyOffice's added terms they did not have a legal right to add. You cannot say, this is open source software. You can use it and distribute it with the license, but you have to retain all of our information in there. You can't make that requirement. Section 7B does not say you can add a requirement to keep your logo and branding. That refers to legal notices. We're doing this to satisfy this law, etc., etc. And so it really boils down to an issue of, does LibreOffice violate the law or not? So in Computer World had, I think, the best overall write-up about this, looking at multiple sides here. So a group of European technology companies, including Nextcloud, Ionis, and Proton, announced LibreOffice last week, billed as a sovereign open source productivity suite that's compatible with Microsoft's proprietary Office software, built on the open source code, owned by OnlyOffice, and distributed under the AGPL v3. So OnlyOffice accused the code they're requiring to retain the branding. OnlyOffice said LibreOffice doesn't meet the conditions, and therefore any use of the software is unauthorized and such constitutes an infringement of their copyright. The company also claims it was not contacted about LibreOffice project prior to launch. However, being is that this indicates that they have tried several times. Where was that? They have tried several times to work with it. They were not actually able to. Where was that at? I read it earlier. Consensus. I thought it was this page. Maybe it was a different page. Yeah, we looked at that earlier. But they have tried to contribute, but their pull requests are never honored. Their contributions are often neglected or ignored, and all of the references to issues and bugs are internal codes, not external things that can be tracked by external people. So in a separate blog post, the OnlyOffice CEO said that the LibreOffice project must either restore our branding and attributions or roll back all forks of our project, refraining from using our source code without proper acknowledgement. Again, do they have the requirement to say you must retain all of our logos and branding? Under the APL, under the license terms, I'll get it right eventually. Under the license terms, it would appear no. You have the requirement to say you have to keep legal requirements, legal notices, but not necessarily your branding. OnlyOffice said it will suspend its partnership with Nextcloud. However, they did say they are making sure that their software continues to work with Nextcloud. Otherwise, that would cause a tremendous loss to them. So effectively, they're going to continue to work with that for now. So commenting on OnlyOffice infringement claims, Nextcloud spokesperson says, as OnlyOffice itself states, its product isn't open source. Forks are a central component to the open source ecosystem, are explicitly intended to enable further development, customizability, and alternative governance model. Nextcloud says LibreOffice project has transparently documented its legal reasoning in a public repository on GitHub. It also claimed the view is shared by the Free Software Foundation, the custodian of the AGPL and the GPL licenses, and points out that Free Software Foundation's GPL-compliant reasonable legal notices and authors' attributions page. The legal situation is also discussed with Bradley M. Kuhn, the creator of the AGPL license, and he supports the legal assessment 100%. So the guy who made the license says LibreOffice is in the right. All right. They say OnlyOffice says we're not opposed to forks, of course, but they want full compliance. The question is, does OnlyOffice have the right to say you must retain our branding? And it would appear that Nextcloud has attempted to do such deals with them in the past and have not been able to successfully do so. So being an open source project, they just decide to fork it instead. A lot of it, and it does reading behind the lines here, a lot of it does seem to suggest a big deal of it is the Russian connection, which OnlyOffice says. Now, some people say that they are just branding themselves the way they are just to avoid this Russian connection. Other people are saying, yeah, no, it's legitimately, we're not. They actually say down here, OnlyOffice says down here in a blog post, that the owner of the company is Ascensio System, SAA, is located in Latvia and is a subsidiary of OnlyOffice Capital Group, which is registered in Singapore. The post says OnlyOffice's Russian business segment was sold in 2019. A fork of OnlyOffice called R7 Office was created for the Russian market. There's currently no shared code base ownership or ongoing cooperation. So OnlyOffice rejects that they have ties to Russia. And that really is one of the principal issues here. Again, I don't care, even if Russian government's involved. Hey, as long as I can audit the source code, I don't care. Do people look at it and say it's good? To be honest, my experimenting with OnlyOffice over the years, it's not a horrible office suite, but it doesn't hold a candle to LibreOffice. So I continue to support LibreOffice, despite they have some current controversies as well at the moment. But looking at this and looking at what OnlyOffice does, and I turned on Wireshark, and I tested this a number of different ways. Turn on Wireshark, no network connections, open up OnlyOffice, and makes hundreds of connections to the internet. At that time, it was doing, I have a whole video on it, but I think it was doing AWS connections and I think some Google connections. I can't remember for sure if the Google ones were in there, but I had documented it all in that video. And the challenge is that another person, what prompted me to look at that with Wireshark was another company raised some concerns with some of their applications as well. So I was merely reporting on that and then decided to look at it in Wireshark, and that's what I saw. And at that point in time, OnlyOffice sends me threatening letters and stuff. I'm like, yeah. And I told them, go correct the record with the people who wrote the original article. It's effectively what I told them. So let me know your thoughts about all this in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.